So a bit of an overview about Bosnia is that they have a population of around 3.2%, which has been on a decline of about 0.53% since 2020. The capital is Sarajevo, and the government type is a parliamentary democracy. And they have their constitution, which is called the Dayton Accords, which were signed in December 14th of 1995. There are three main ethnic groups, which include the Bosniaks, which make up 50% of the population, the Serbs, which make up 30%, and the Croats, which make up 15% of the population. There are three official languages spoken, which is Bosnian, Serbian, and Croatian. And there are three main religions, which includes the Islamic religion, the Eastern Orthodox Church, and Roman Catholicism.
Hi, my name is Kaisa, and here's my general overview of Indonesia. For those of you who may not know, Indonesia is located in Southeast Asia, and it has a population of 269 million people. Its capital is Jakarta, and the government type is a multi-part republic with two legislative houses. The Regional Representative Council and the House of Representatives are a part of those two legislative houses. The main ethnic groups of Indonesia would be the Javanese people, which is about 40% of the population. The Sudanese people, which is about 60% of the population. The Batak people, which is about 3.8% of the population. The Sulawesi people, which is about 3.2% of the population, and the Madurese people, which is about 3.03% of the population, and the Betwi people, which is about 2.9% of the population. The official language spoken in Indonesia is Bahasa, and they also speak Javanese, but Javanese would be considered more so of a dialect that's spoken, not necessarily the official language. There's some of the religions that are practiced in Indonesia would be Islam. Islam being the main religion. It's practiced by a total of 87% of the population in Indonesia. And there's also Christianity that's practiced, Hinduism, Buddhism, and other religions.
So now I'm going to talk a little bit about Bosnian wedding attire, and there's a lot of variation in terms of clothing because of the diversity of religious groups, and the three main groups that I'll focus on are Muslim Bosnian weddings, traditional Bosnian weddings, which is Eastern Orthodox, as well as Roman Catholic weddings. So while you may have noticed a lot of differences amongst the photos that you've just seen, there are also quite a few common denominators that tie wedding attire for all three religious groups together. So to begin, women's dresses vary based on religion, but all three have the bride wearing white. And this is tied to tradition and also the religious concept that white equals purity. Now moving on, in Bosnia, people generally dress in a Western style clothing, which means there are many Western influences from around the world that come together to kind of create this cultural collide or this cultural mesh of clothing. Also, clothing is a reflection of the three main principles of intimacy, modernity, and sophistication. This means that these three principles set the tone for wedding attire. Now, modern day wedding attire in Bosnia combines, again, contemporary features with more traditional features, and this is seen in some of the photos. In Bosnia, wedding attire is mainly always all about the woman, so men tend to dress in more calm or neutral tones that may match something in the scenery. So this could mean that a groom's tie might match the drapes or the flowers or a tablecloth. Again, moving forward with men, they often wear caps, white blouses, and elaborately embroidered vests, which is similar to the bride's embroidery that may be found on her dress. Which brings me to my next point of gowns often feature lace trim, which is often made out of very expensive fabric, beaded embroidery like that of the man's vest, tooled to create volume and a more, voluminous silhouette for the bride's dress, and small accents of soft or metallic tones. So the most common one that I've seen while researching has been gold or rose gold and baby pink. And finally, veils are very important for all of these three religious groups, and typically you will not see a dress or a bride not wearing one.
Hi, so I'm here to talk about the wedding attires in Indonesia. So because Indonesia has a lot of tribes and cultures, these tribes mostly have their own individual attires that the grooms and the brides wear on their big day. But we will narrow it down to talk about the Javanese, the Sudanese, and the Balinese weddings. So for the grooms, they usually wear the biskap, and the brides usually wear kebaya. So the kebaya is made with like sheer fabric, which is usually like silk or really thin cotton fabric, or also a semi-transparent nylon or polyester fabric. And these fabrics are usually like adorned with like very intricate designs and like floral embroidered patterns. Also, they use the brocade, which already has like embedded designs in the fabric. So the batik, the batik is usually worn on the top. That's what the brides usually wear at the top part, and it's usually made with like very intricate like designs. So the kebaya is very colorful, full of details with like floral embroideries, and it's really modest. It covers like almost the whole body, but it's very, very colorful with very bright colors as well. So the batik cloth, it's usually beautifully like wrapped at the hips area in multiple folds, and it's called the wearing. And whilst the top, the upper torso, they wear the kebaya dress. So for the men, they also wear the batik, they also wear the batik cloth, which is also like folded around the hip area, but it's usually like sewn together into like a tabular form, and that's what the men usually wear, and it's also like just wrapped around the hip area. So the batik cloth is sometimes sewn into like contemporary shirts that the grooms also wear on top of the already wrapped one at the bottom part.
So now we'll be going in and talking about the differences and similarities of Bosnian and Indonesian wedding attire. So start out with the differences. With Bosnia's wedding attire, they aren't as bright. They aren't as bright and colorful. And the Eastern Orthodox Bosnian wedding is a bit more colorful though. So Indonesian wedding attires are very, very colorful, very, very intricate with the trimmings and everything. It's just very like, wow, And the way it's made that way, it's to make the bride and groom feel like a king on their special day, And the attires are inspired by the old nobility and sultan and raja of each of the region throughout Indonesia, and I think that is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
So now that we viewed the wedding attire in both Bosnia and Indonesia, we can kind of draw some conclusions on the differences and similarities. So to begin with similarities, both countries' wedding attire is very modest. It is not overly sexualized. Both cultures share the Islamic religion. Both cultures feature fragmented attire traditions. All are beautiful, but there's not this kind of overarching homogeneous style of wedding attire. Each one is special and unique in its own way. Both cultures feature textured fabrics and trimmings as the finishing touch to these gowns, and both include attire inspired by a history of traditions, but these traditions are also met with a more modern touch. So, what's the bigger picture here? Well, wedding attire can make people feel special, and it's more about a celebration of love that brings friends and families together from all walks of life, regardless of what religion you practice. It also reminds us that clothing can make us and others feel special by bringing out the best in ourselves and in one another. And while cultural traditions are paramount, modernity is infinite, which means that no matter what, tradition is going to be influenced by modern times. And perhaps the biggest lesson of all throughout all of this is that love makes the world a better place, and weddings are just a reminder of that.